So I just wanted to do a quick review of the Luba 2 from Motion. I pre-ordered it sometime in Feb earlier this year, and it came out in April, certainly in the UK, and I got mine very beginning of April, so I've been using it for a good month and a half, I'd say. Every day pretty much it's been running, so I'm quite picky when it comes to the way it should work and the way I want it to work. So it took me a little while to set it up. So yes, I'm going to go through the whole setup videos that you see everywhere on YouTube. It's super easy to set up. The good thing is the RTK, which is the aerial, which connects to the satellite, is not anywhere near here. So it's on a field behind me, where it has clear skies. And the good thing about that, it's apparently has up to 3 miles range. So I've never had any issue in terms of the actual connection between the robot and the RTK, except when you go under trees or under bushes, where it's actually not the RTK aerial, but it's the actual mower itself, which can lose connection briefly, but it's got the camera, certainly to try to understand where it is. And sometimes it can go around in a bit of circles, doesn't really know where it is, but then eventually finds its way and goes back on track. So you can see here's a garden with some bushes and different parts, and it's not the easiest garden in the universe. It's not flat, probably doesn't show that much on a video per se, but it's not a flat garden by any means. It has burnt patches and earthy patches, certainly. Here there used to be, well, there are daffodils in season, so once you cut them off, they tend to gather a lot of grass aside from the leaves themselves, which means you get some quite bold, so to speak, or patches, but that will grow back. But aside from that, you can see it's fairly behind as a field, and you can see how Luba has been mowing this. I choose some sort of diagonal cut, so it's, again, the garden is not a square, it's not a rectangle, it's some sort of circle in parts. And really it's not flat. I mean, it doesn't show, but there's a slope, many slopes actually. There's 2 slopes. It can slope from left to right and from effectively top to bottom, if that makes any sense. And it has a lot of bumps, and we had a lot of moles here as well, so that again, that leaves those patches, but really we started here on the same sort of grass you'd have here on the field on the other side, probably even longer. And I did everything with Luba. I didn't try to cut it off before and then put the Luba on. It was purely it doing the whole job. So now you can see you get the nice stripes. It goes around twice a week, which of course you can program the way you want. It's quite neat. Again, you can see this garden has trees a bit everywhere, well, not everywhere, but in parts. And when it goes under those trees, that's where I'd say it's the least reliable, so to speak. But even though you can see the stripes, I put the no-go zones around the trees, so you can define obviously the no-go zones, so where you don't want it to cut the grass. It could effectively deal with the trees and detect there's a tree and bump on it, and there's different ways of how it would detect it, whether you want it to bump into it hardly, slowly, not at all, detect it before and U-turn and contour it. But I just define areas where around trees where I don't want it to go, in the sense that I've got roots. They're quite large trees, I don't want the blades to be, damaged, or the motor of the blades. There are 2 motors and 2 cutting discs with 4 blades attached in each. So I don't want this to be damaged. I just define effectively no-go zones around the trees. But you can tell, and again, you've got benches, you've got flower beds, you've got, tables. So there's a bunch of things. But I think the point being, it does a nice job of a cut. As you can see, nice stripes. And yeah, I mean, it's nice, it's neat. And again, this is not at all the very, very far from being the perfect garden in terms of shape, in terms of being flat or not, as it is. In terms of having things on the way, it has many things on the way. But so just to say, this is probably the best robot mower, that I've tried and I've used many. In fact, it's the roof of the charge base comes from another mower, because this one comes without a roof, and the roof costs 180 quid. So I thought, just for a piece of plastic, I'd use the old one. But effectively, I think it's possibly the best robot I've had. It can go in any ground, any terrain, I haven't, I mean, here it looks flat, but again, it never got stuck a single time. I've used many who got stuck every day, several times a day. I'd have to come out, dig it out, etc., etc. So, it's it is, as far as a robot mower is concerned, if you want to let it do things, program what days and times it will go and cut the grass. There are other areas as well behind the house. On the front of the house, it's got 3 different areas. One goes through a drive outside of the house, effectively, and 2 other areas at the front, and it goes, and again, plenty of trees and roots and flower beds and stuff to avoid, and it does a good job of getting from one place to another. You then define corridors in between the different areas that you've defined, and then it goes from one to another. You can define whether you want them all to be cut, or just one of them or 2 of them, or you really do your own thing. But if you're going to go for a robot mower, that certainly is, as far as I'm concerned, the best one I've used. I know there are some super expensive ones as well out there. This one is fairly expensive, but I mean, I've got a 1,000 one because I've got a small garden. I know it can go up to 5,000 square meters, so much larger than this, but I've got just under 1,000 square meter here. But the point is, it cuts very well. It's very, it will go in any terrain. It doesn't get stuck. So yeah, I probably got it stuck. Nothing to do with the actual terrain, but with loss of connection or something happened, but nothing to do with the actual problem not being able to go or being stuck. I mean, I probably had to release it probably a couple of times, or 3 times perhaps, in a month and a half, which is effectively what I would have every couple of hours with the previous ones on here. Anyway, so I just wanted to share this review. Clearly this is very homemade and not something that is looking to promote anything or be promoted by anyone or anything. Just my review as a guy in the UK who's been using many robots and has been using the Luba 2 for a while and is very happy with it. Just one thing to note, you probably don't want to have to use the support, which I find is, it's online, it's on chat via the app. It's an app to control the robot itself, where you define your zones, etc. There's plenty of videos on YouTube to explain how the setup is done, so I'm not going to go through it. But the point is, it's all happening through an app, and on the app you've got a support. So the support is a chat and clearly the support keeps repeating what they're reading on notes that they have. And if you've got a larger problem, so to speak, then it goes to their technical support, and then it takes a lot of back and forth with, I'm not sure if it's clearly not a English language. They've got many languages apparently, but several languages, but they speak English, and I'm not sure it's their first language. But the point is, sometimes I don't know if it's misunderstanding or just bad organization, but the point is you don't get very good support. I had an issue with the battery which they claim lasts 2 hours on that model, and mine never went above an hour and 15 minutes. I think it was the absolute max. So I was sort of querying whether the battery had an issue, was a deep, it was a problem with it. And it took them about 3 weeks to come to the conclusion, analyze the data that I've sent them, and come to the conclusion that no, there was no issue. It's normal. So apparently it's normal to claim that a battery lasts 2 hours, and when it does one, really. And I talked to people with other larger models for the 4,000-5,000, and they had the same issue as well. So, but it doesn't really matter. It goes and recharges itself whenever it goes below 15% recharge. So if you set up a daily routine or whatever, you set up, it will go, start doing it, stop in the middle, go back to recharge, carry on doing it. And even if it takes longer because the battery doesn't last very long. But I mean, if you're at work and not at home, then, you don't really care as far as you're concerned. You come back and you find this and you haven't done anything. So that's great. There's also a security feature because it's linked to your app. Aside from being GPS tracked, I mean, mine is, in addition to Wi-Fi, in addition to the RTK, you can, if somebody stole it, it would be, I would be able to track it, but even if I wasn't, nobody can use it. It's linked to the app and it's completely useless once, it's not connected to the same phone with the same app, just as a security feature. So I hope that was useful for anyone who wanted to buy one. Please don't hesitate to ask questions. I'm quite detailed, so I spend quite a while trying all setups and updates and playing with it and trying different ways to do things and to effectively split the garden at the back and the front in many areas, and etc. So don't hesitate to ask questions if you want to. Just happy to share and help. That's really the idea of this video. And I've seen a lot of reviews and a lot of them show the actual setup or just show it running, but I thought some of them tend to be reviewed where the brand send a mower to the user and they use it for an hour. I don't think for an hour you can, with all due respect, have as good a feedback as you would after a month and a half using it every day. So that's what I wanted to share. Hope that was useful. Thanks very much. Don't hesitate if you have any questions. Happy to help. Cheers.